education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
Welcome. Glad you're with us. We're going to be joined by Bill Federer here at the beginning, and then Usama Dakdok and Shahram Hadian. I want to talk about the Islamic Doomsday Clock. I don't know who put this out. I'd like to give credit to whoever did it. The Islamic Doomsday Clock. And the final at the top at midnight is the establishment of Islamic law, Sharia. It's moving fast. But before we go to that, apparently the global warming in Brazil is so hot. It is so hot, the global warming, that the building at the COP30 climate summit in Brazil has caught fire. I guess that's global warming, because they blame everything for global warming, right? So apparently Brazil has the worst global warming, that even at their own climate change conference, it got so hot the building caught fire. Have you guys seen the videos? They're everywhere today. Now, that's a little tongue-in-cheek. We hope nobody was harmed or hurt, that's for sure. But isn't it kind of ironic that people running around worrying about climate change apparently don't have enough common sense to try to prevent a fire from happening? I'd like to find out what it was. It looks like it was in the exhibit hall. So the question is, maybe more emphasis on common sense instead of fairy tales, guys. But kind of ironic, the fire at COP30. We'll get a report, I think, later today on that from Alex Newman. Have it tonight for Brannon House Live. Up early at the desk around 7:30 Central studying today. Spend the mornings a lot of time studying, of course, studying, doing show prep. But today I spent more time studying for about 3 hours, just on part 2 of why I'm a Christian Zionist, part 2. And Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, our Sunday night church service we do every Sunday night, will be part 2. And I'm going to particularly take you verse by verse through Romans chapter 11. Romans chapter 11. And we'll continue our study from the scriptures and refute some of the false theologies out there, like replacement theology, dominion theology. So again, a lot of great stuff coming this weekend. Even though we're Monday through Friday, we're also Sunday night, worldviewtube.com, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. Joining me now is Bill Federer. Bill, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
It's great to be with you.
Bill, take a look at this. I'll explain it to the radio audience. It's the Islamic Doomsday Clock. Now, I don't know who did this. I would gladly give them credit. It just says editor, by editor. The Islamic Doomsday Clock. At the time, they were saying we were at about 7:30. And that was back in May of 2024. 1 o'clock is target an open democratic society. 2 o'clock, bring mass migration from Islamic countries. 3 o'clock, random terror attacks begin to happen. 4 o'clock, create Muslim enclaves in the largest towns. 5 o'clock, demand special privileges. 6 o'clock, infiltrate councils and target seats in government. 7 o'clock, assert dominance with tactics like open street praying. 8 o'clock, create a party of Islam in the democracy. 9 o'clock, use Islamophobia laws to suppress free speech. 10 o'clock, Islamic terror attacks increase. 11 o'clock, provoke a civil war in the hostile nation. And that brings you to 11 o'clock. Apparently they plan on winning that civil war. And if they do, the establishment of Islamic law. Bill, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I would just add that the 11 o'clock may just be through population. So as Muslim countries send people into Western nations, they milk the welfare system. So in Islam, a man can have 4 wives. If you go to Egypt, look at their marriage license and the government office, there's a line for the husband and 4 lines for wives. And so in Europe, the Muslim man will put a wife in each apartment, tell them to go down to the welfare office and say their husband's not around, and they get welfare checks. And he visits the wives, and the more children they have, the larger the welfare checks get. And so he's living like a king at state expense with his harem, and it's all paid for. And it's a social stigma for a Muslim woman to have less than 5 kids. And so the Europeans are maybe having 1 kid, but the fundamental Muslims are having 5 per wife, and then he can have 4 wives. They estimate by 2030 there will just be a majority Muslim population, and all they have to do is vote in Sharia law. So they may not even have to do the violence. But nevertheless, it is a pattern that goes back to Muhammad. So Muhammad was born in 570 AD. His father dies before he's born. His mother dies when he's 6. He's orphaned, taken in by an uncle. Abu Talib goes on camel rides, hears about different religions. Lo and behold, his religion reflects a lot of things that are in these other country religions, sort of like Persia had Zoroastrians that believed paradise was filled full of virgins that would fulfill all the guy's desires. So he goes into Mecca in 610 AD, and he presents his new faith and nobody's excited. And so he gets confrontational. And so in 622 AD, he's chased out of town. And so he only made 70 converts in 12 years. And so he's a Muslim refugee. He goes north to a Jewish city called Medina, and 3 Jewish clans control Medina. And they're nice. They let Muhammad in as the first Muslim immigrant ever. He goes into the minority neighborhoods and he begins to organize a following. And when it grows, he gets involved in politics and he pressures the Jews to accommodate him and his followers politically. They do. They make a treaty. Now Muhammad's a political leader in addition to being a religious leader. And then his followers in Mecca get confrontational. They get chased out of town for disturbing the peace. Now there's lots of Muslim refugees that come into Medina as Muslim immigrants. And Muhammad allows them to rob the caravans headed back to Mecca in retaliation for the Meccans chasing them out of town. So where Jesus said, if they take your coat, give them your shirt, Muhammad's attitude was this victimhood thing. If they were intolerant of you and took your house, you retaliate, take their caravan. So he gets verses from his Allah that he gets 1/5 of the booty. One verse says, Allah has given you the slave girls as your booty. And so the Meccans send an army to try to stop Muhammad. He fights in 66 battles and raids, killing an estimated 3,000 people. He goes back into the Jewish town of Medina and gets offended at one of the Jewish clans, confiscates their property, and chases them out. The other 2 clans sort of keep their heads low. Then he picks on the second clan and confiscates their property, chases them out of town. The big clan sort of keeps its head low. And now there's only one Jewish clan. He brings them into the market, chops off the heads of the men, sells women and children in slavery. So within 5 years of Muhammad coming into the Jewish city as an immigrant, there's not a Jew left in this city. They were chased out, killed, or enslaved. And within 5 years of Muhammad's death, every pre-existing culture in Arabia is wiped out. Within the next 50 years, they've invaded Spain, and within 100 years, they're at the gates of Paris. And so we see this pattern. It's a 3-step pattern. Come into a country as an immigrant, go into minority neighborhoods and organize a following, and then get involved in politics, and then have random outbreaks of violence in the neighborhoods, and the previous inhabitants no longer feel safe, and they move out, and the Muslims take over the community. And they do this neighborhood by neighborhood, city by city, country by country. There's a 1,400-year track record to watch this happening, so it's no mystery. So we see them, again, coming into Europe, coming into these Western countries, at first as immigrants, and then they build their communities and get involved in politics. And then they sort of like in nature, you have domestic species and invasive species. So you got Kentucky bluegrass and Texas crabgrass, right? So it first comes in and then it grows and then it eliminates the previous. You got ants and then you got fire ants. You got bees, you got killer bees. You got so in nature you have this. And so Christianity is more of a domestic ideology. Turn the other cheek, love your enemies, forgive. Islam is more of an aggressive and invasive ideology because wherever it comes in, it eradicates the previous culture and religion. So this is something that's happening in America right now.
And where do you think we are? If you had to guess on this clock, on this doomsday clock, where do you think we are?
Yeah, we're about 3/4 of the way through. And so when you look at the history, will come in and take advantage of the freedoms. There's a great quote from Eisenhower in 1954, 55, when the communists, Cold War is taking place and communists were coming into America. And Eisenhower said, no group can use the Bill of Rights as a privileged sanctuary from which to wage war to destroy the Bill of Rights. You can't come in as a socialist communist saying, oh, we want freedom of religion, we want freedom of press, we want freedom of speech, but our ultimate goal is to overthrow the country and set up communism where there is no freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and freedom of press. In the same way, you can't have Islamic immigrants coming in saying, we want freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, freedom of press, but our ultimate goal is Sharia law, where we outlaw freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of speech. All right, if you say anything insulting Islam, it's the death penalty. And again, people forget, all of Egypt used to be Christian for 6 centuries, evangelized by Mark that wrote the gospel, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, until the Muslim leader Amir ibn Alas invaded. All of North Africa used to be Christian. St. Augustine of Hippo is from Carthage. Today that's Tunisia. But the Christians' version of separation of church and state is they removed themselves from being involved. They thought it was holier to live in a cave as a hermit. Meanwhile, the Muslims just swept through North Africa. In the year 711, they invaded Spain. Tariq was the general. He landed at a mountain. The word for mountain is Jabal, so they called it Jabal Tariq, Gibraltar, Rock of Gibraltar. And so you have 70,000 Muslims invade Spain with lots of kingdoms. And they would pick on one kingdom, and the other ones would stand back and let it get conquered because they thought, he was always competition for me. Then they'd pick on another kingdom. So the same way they did divide and conquer with the Jews in Medina, they did that with the Visigothic Christian kingdoms in Spain until they conquered all of Spain, crossed the Pyrenees, conquered southern France, and they finally stopped outside of Paris at the Battle of Tours in 732 AD, just 100 years after the death of Muhammad in 632 AD. And then they come through and conquered Jerusalem, which had been a Byzantine Christian city for 3 centuries. And then they conquered Syria in 648 AD. Syria was the first country to completely be Christian, evangelized by the Apostle Paul. The name Christian was first used in Syria until Caliph Umar conquers it. And then the Turks convert to Islam and conquer into what is today Turkey, the Seljuk Turks that the Crusades were trying to push back on, and then the Ottoman Turks. And when the Turks conquered Constantinople in 1453, it ended the land trade routes to India, and that's when Columbus set sail looking for a sea route. Columbus would have never set sail had it not been for Islamic Jihad, Sultan Mehmed II conquering the largest Christian city in Europe, Constantinople, and turning the largest Christian church into a mosque, the Hagia Sophia. And so we see that this trend of them feeling that they are following the command of Allah to bring the world into submission. So the word Islam means submission to the will of Allah. A Muslim is one who has submitted, and they think there will be world peace when the whole world submits to the will of Allah. So to them, world peace means world Islam.
So when I come back, before we go to Usama and Shahram to respond to what you've been beautifully laying out, I want to ask when I come back, how do you think the Trump administration is doing when it comes to Islam? Yesterday, the day before, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Of course, I don't think you can have any churches or Jewish temples in Saudi Arabia. I don't think you can evangelize. There's no Christian freedom of speech there. How do you think the president and his administration are doing this term versus his last term when it comes to the infiltration and, doomsday clock of Islam in America? Be right back. Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. welcome back. Bill Federer, AmericanMinute.com, I believe it is. AmericanMinute.com. Double check that with Bill. Bill, is that correct? Do I have that right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, good. AmericanMinute.com. All right. So before we go to Usama Dakdok and Shahram Hadian, how do you think President Trump and his administration are doing when it comes to this issue of Islam and the doomsday clock in America?
Yeah, well, and I do want to mention I have a book on this. It's called What Every American Needs to Know About the Quran, a history of Islam in the United States. And the majority of Muslims would prefer to be moderate. But when the non-Muslim world shows itself weak, it emboldens the fundamental Muslims, who then are just as happy to kill a moderate as they are to kill an infidel. And so I tell people it's like a gang taking over your neighborhood. If you call the police and they show up and arrest the gang leaders, are you going to call the police again? Yes. But what if you call the police and they don't show up? Worse, the gang leader comes to your door and says, we have somebody inside the police department and they said you snitched. If you call again, we'll kill you. Are you going to call the police again? Probably not. And so when the non-Muslim world sees, or the moderate Muslim sees the non-Muslim world strong against Islam, it emboldens them to be more comfortable siding with the West. But when they see the non-Muslim world showing itself weak or too accommodating and seeing the fundamental ones winning elections like in New York, it's emboldening the fundamental ones who are then pressuring the moderate ones to become more radicalized. So I wanted to throw that out. Now, Trump, the current leader of Saudi Arabia, I've not totally figured out yet. It does seem to me that he's more business-minded than fundamental Islam-minded. Maybe Trump is trying to appeal to that. But I don't know if Trump realizes the 1,400-year history that they have of coming in and taking over. One of the things I do throw out is 1960 is when the PLO was started in Moscow by the KGB. During the Cold War, the KGB was starting all these liberation organizations, the FARC in Colombia and ELN in Bolivia, and helping to take over, Cuba with Castro. And so they would start these organizations to sow discord so that these countries would not side with the West. So the purpose of the PLO is to sow discord in the Middle East to keep it from siding with the West. And so the PLO got mixed together with the Wahhabi ideology, the Muslim Brotherhood ideology. So you now have fundamental Islam together with socialist tactics. That's what we're seeing in New York. You have fundamentalist Islam working together with socialist tactics, divide and conquer and so forth. Both of them want a one world government. And they're happy to use each other, but ultimately Islam sees itself as a Allah-approved world government. So we're going to see what happens. I do think that it's up to us in the West that want to value Judeo-Christian civilization that comes up with the idea that women are equal to men, and that we're all made in the image of God. And in Islam, Allah has no image, and there's no concept of equality. We have to realize that these are values that are Western, they're biblical, and they're worth defending. Because if America goes, then where else in the world can we go? It'll be a gang war between Russia and China and Iran, and so we need to take serious immediately winning the midterms, but then teaching these values to the next generation.
And then as far as them creating their own party, that's on the doomsday clock, the Islamic doomsday clock, create a party of Islam in the democracy. We're not a democracy, we're a republic, but it's using that term democracy in that you get to vote, get to choose. It's using it in the generic sense, I think. But are they going to need to create their own party? Not when there's a red-green axis, not when you have already these Islamists inside the Democrat Party. Why do you need to create a new party? It seems to me they don't need here to create a new party. Again, I quote all the time Carlos the Jackal, the Islamist, who said, America cannot be defeated unless there is a coalition between the Marxists and the Islamists. So why create a separate Islamic party when you can use the Democrat Party, the Marxists and the Islamists together and be a bigger coalition to bring down the country? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. And in Texas, they're infiltrating the Republican Party. That's right. The Republican Party are like, oh, you want to come in and you want to join our party? Fine. They don't realize that Islam is like a pinball machine. They'll bounce to one party, back to the other, back to the other. But ultimately, the gravity is pulling it down. They want their own agenda, which is to institute.
So what made you say that? I mean,
government.
I'm not refuting you, but what made you just say that Texas Republicans are inviting the Islamists in?
Yeah, well, I spoke at Dr. Andy Wood's church, and some of the people that had been involved with the Republican Party were telling me that the current Republican Party leadership in that area has been reaching out to the Muslims that are coming into the community saying, hey, join our party. And then when they do, they get involved in leadership, and then they're like preferring their agenda. Both parties are open game, especially when it takes votes and money to get elected. And they see a lot of these immigrants as, hey, you're a lot of votes, and you've not yet chosen which side to align with us, and we'll give accommodations.
Well, didn't President Trump do that with the mayor of, Dearborn, Michigan? And this dude is now going to be Amtrak, Michigan. And now this guy's going to become the ambassador to Kuwait. I mean, go look at this guy's record. President Trump did that. They're just following the head of the GOP, what he's done.
Yeah, so we're in a very serious situation, but I think the answer is, number one, educating people. When you zoom out and look at 1,400 years of history, it becomes really clear that all these areas that used to be Christian are no longer Christian. Mm-hmm. And in northern India's case, it used to be Hindu, and now it's Islam. They have, a matter of fact, the Hindus were into tolerating lots of different gods and lots of different religions. And then when Islam comes in, they thought, well, another religion, fine. Come on in, the water's warm. Not realizing that Islam was exclusive. So when they first came in, you actually had Hindus helping them to build their first Muslim mosques, not realizing that they wanted to come over and eradicate.
Yes.
And so today you have leftists that say, oh, tolerate everybody. Tolerate is good. But they don't realize that you could actually tolerate people that don't want to tolerate you.
Yeah, and you got the Southern Baptist Convention and all these clowns there in Nashville helping build mosques like the one there in outside of Nashville, saying that if we don't defend their right to build mosques, it could backfire on us to build churches. And so we have to build mosques. And this same thing's going on inside the so-called Southern Baptist Convention, the largest Protestant denomination in America. Ignorance, right? Foolishness, ignorance. It's ridiculous. AmericanMinute.com. Bill, thank you for being with us. And I hope folks will visit your website and find out more. And tell them again the name of the book you've written on this topic.
It's called What Every American Needs to Know About the Quran, History of Islam in the United States.
AmericanMinute.com. All right. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bill Federer checking in, folks. All right. Let's go to Usama Dakdok. Born and raised in Egypt, never a Muslim. His dad, again, the family's been there for generations, planted Christian churches all over Egypt. Of course, we know what's happened. That was a Coptic nation, and Islam came in and took over. Now, Usama can't even go back home. He joins us by phone, along with Shahram Hadian. His family goes back generations in Iran. His daddy got out of Iran, took the family with him 6 weeks before the fall of the Shah. And his daddy was a moderate. He was a beer-drinking, pork-eating Muslim, so he was not practicing, folks. So to all the folks who say, well, you guys hate Muslims. No. Hadian loves his dad, loves his mom, but they both have now passed away. The issue is Islam, right? So make that fine point here we're making. They join us today. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Good to be with you, brother, man. Good to be with you, Shannon.
All right, let's go to you first, Hadian. You notice that he mentions Texas. The Republicans in Texas are bringing in the Islamists. Now, aren't you going to be in Texas in the next day or so doing something for Andy Wood's church?
Yes, sir. I'm flying there tomorrow, and Saturday we are doing a rally, or not a rally, but a outreach right downtown in Sugar Land, Texas, right at their city square. We're back in April. The Muslim, particularly the Pakistani Muslim community there, took over the city square and called it Bringing Mecca to Sugar Land. And Dr. Woods, who Bill Federer just mentioned, contacted me and said, I can't believe this is happening. This is exactly what you guys had told us would happen. And so what do we do? And I said, we need to have a counter event. We need to go in the spirit of the Lord, with faith and with prayer and with worship and with the gospel, but you've got to go stand. And so, Lord willing, Saturday night we'll be there at 6:30, taking a stand and lifting up the name of the one true God and declaring that Allah is not God, that this is a spirit that when they broadcast that call of prayer, they are broadcasting this demonic spirit. And if I can quickly comment to what Bill said with Texas politics, this isn't just in Texas. Brandon, I'm seeing this with the Republican Party in multiple places where I've been. And remember, you and I have talked about this, that when the Islamic community gets closer to that upper house, when they're in that transition between lower, where they don't have power, to upper, they go from, espousing leftist ideology, pro-LGBT, trans, abortion, all that kind of stuff, like Mamdani in New York, and they all of a sudden start looking more conservative because now they're not for those things. So the Republicans foolishly think that they found allies. And what they don't realize is that they're being played. And so that was a good point that Bill was making, is that it's not just fully taken over the Democrat and now the Democrat socialist. It's taking over the Republican Party, and it is to their foolishness that they're doing this.
And Usama, you want to respond, please, before we go to the Doomsday Clock?
Absolutely. I believe we are not in a new trend here. This is what's happening. Remember Muhammad Oz, Dr. Oz, whom Mr. Trump also supported for the Senate, and he is a Muslim man from Turkey, and we know about the history of Turkey and the annihilation of 150,000 Christian just recently, less than 100 years ago, and that is what Muslims. I said in your city, Brandon, that the day is coming, and Muslims will be running both aisles, and they will control the country from the right and from the left. It's just we do not know anything about Islam, and we think, oh, that guy is a moderate Muslim. That guy is a conservative Muslim. There is no such a thing as moderate or conservative Muslim. You're a Muslim or you're a hypocrite. I don't know where they come up with this propaganda new group of Islam. And Dr. Bill is a smart man. He's a historian. He knows what he's talking about. I know him for many, many, many years. And boy, if you keep him on the phone, he can go on for hours.
Yeah,
so,
like somebody else I know.
All what he said is true. We just need to figure out what are we doing in this country.
Would you think you're going to get some pushback, Shahram, from Republican leaders when you go to Texas and start talking that way in front of the the city hall, town hall of Sugar Land, Texas?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, right now we're trying to figure out, because one of the speakers who's going to be speaking that night is on the city council. I did not know this till a few days ago, but we're trying to kind of figure out right now where he's at with. From what I've been told, he's a believer, but yet Amy Meck had done an article from the Rare Foundation on these local officials, both in Dallas, Houston, and Sugar Land, who had welcomed this Ismaili Muslim leader in and given them the keys to the city and red carpet treatment and all this stuff. And his name was part of that. And I think that absolutely we're going to get pushback because the Republican Party, you said it and Bill said it, it's votes, it's money, it's power. And I think that's also what's influencing the Trump administration. You were talking earlier about Amir
right there. The computer's going to take it away.
That's the mayor of Hamtramck.
The computer's going to take it away. We'll be right back.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
All right, welcome back. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. Usama Dakdok, thestraightway.org, thestraightway.org, and Shahram Hadian. He is at tilministry.com, tilministry.com. So we have the mayor of Hamtramck, Michigan. Donald Trump has put him up as the ambassador to Kuwait. I mean, this guy, when I looked his background up and read about him, I mean, this guy is a real problem, I think, with his worldview. Is he not, Shahram?
I mean, let's not forget the city of Hamtramck became the first Muslim majority city in America. The full city council are Muslim, police chief is Muslim, and Amir Ghalib is behind that. They also were the first city to pass BDS, boycott, divestment sanctions against Israel. And he was on tape as extolling the Muslim Brotherhood, saying that the Muslim Brotherhood was a I can't remember the exact term, something like a glorious organization that they had. And so this is who the Trump administration is tasking. And one other quick point, if I could mention, when you were talking about I don't want to jump away from what you're focusing on, but it was about the doomsday clock. Is it okay if I just comment here, or do you want me to wait?
Yeah, no, you can comment, but I just showed an article. It's at worldviewreport.com. And it's from, hold on one second, guys. Logan, will you or somebody come take this call from Alex? He's calling from Brazil, Alex Newman. He's calling from that conference. I want to definitely book him and record that if we can, if we have to, or we have to do, because they had a fire there today, as we know. By the way, also let him know, Logan, let him know that I'm also reading. Logan, are you listening? Let him know he's not listening. I wanted to bring this up to the audience anyway as well, real quick. And that is, do you guys know ask him about doing any research on the United Nations. I actually had it on my list right here. Highlights and images for November 18th, 2025, the third session of Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee to develop a UN Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation. So ask him if he's up on that as well, because we'd love to talk to him about that as well, which was actually up on my things, guys. That's what we need, right? Is the Marxists and the Islamists in the UN having the ability now to tax us. What do you think that money would go for, folks? We already know. All right, now let's go back to you. I do have up here from Jihad Watch, introducing the racist, anti-Semitic, lying, scandal-ridden Amir Ghalib, the next U.S. ambassador to Kuwait. That's the headline at Jihad Watch. So, and it's linked at worldviewreport.com. All right, with that, let's go to the doomsday clock, the Islamic doomsday clock. Because wouldn't these cities be a perfect example to give us an idea of where we are on this clock, Shahram?
Yes, they would absolutely give us a perfect example. The only thing that I would add, because you had asked Bill the question of, where do you think we are at in America? And of course, it's going to vary from city to city, correct? Because the Islamic movement doesn't just operate at a national level. They operate as local as a neighborhood where, for example, around EPIC, the East Plano Islamic Center, where phase one, they took over an entire neighborhood and now have bought, they've built houses. They call it Medina Lakes. So it could be as local as a neighborhood, a city, a state, a nation. The only thing I would add, looking at that doomsday clock, is if you look at Brannon, 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock, look at those issues, and I would argue those are now simultaneously happening. And don't forget that in 2015, the Muslim Brotherhood created their own political party in America called the USCMO. The U.S. Council on, I'm trying to remember what the acronym was for, but it was called the USCMO. Nihad Awad, the head of CARE, came out and they announced it at one of their at their I believe it was at an ISNA conference, the Islamic Society of North America, and they said this is now our front group.
I think you talked about that.
Super PACs.
I think you talked about that, if I'm not mistaken, on the platform when we had the filming and Ozarks conference in 2018. I think you talked about that on the platform, and I think it's in the documentary Sabotage, and you had Phil Haney sitting there, and Jimmy DeYoung, and Andy Woods, and the rest of them. I think you talked about it way back then.
I did. I said back then they've already created their own political party, and so looking at that doomsday clock, I'm seeing 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and up to 10 o'clock almost simultaneously happening, meaning it doesn't have to be one and then the next one and the next one. Those things are happening now. The difference is I just talked to a pastor friend of mine who had interviewed I think you know Pastor Brandon Holdhouse, who's in Bakersfield, California.
Absolutely.
He had interviewed a guy from the UK that's part of the War College. And he said to me, look, the War College people are telling us that in the UK and Great Britain, was it 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock that says civil war?
That is 11 o'clock.
Doomsday clock.
The doomsday clock says provoke a civil war in the host nation. That is at the 11 o'clock mark.
At 11 o'clock. So he said the UK is now at that 11 o'clock because they're now, this guy that he had interviewed from the War College in London is saying they're at civil war. That's the only way that Great Britain is going to survive is if they go to civil war. We are not there yet, although look at New York, right? Look at some of what's been going on in New York and all this pro-quote Palestine stuff. But I would argue that we are absolutely up to 10 o'clock and that 6 to 10 has simultaneously been happening. And I'll turn it back to you.
And well, let's bring Usama in. Usama, where do you think we are on this doomsday clock?
I believe Brother Shahram is 100% right. And by the way, that's exactly what the Muslims want. They don't want to have a peace relationship with the people of Europe right now, especially in England. They want to have a civil war. Their heart desire. It is a desire of their God, Allah. It is to kill, to destroy, to steal. That's why they win in the first place. They are immigrants who believe in Allah, who about to perform jihad in the Muslim world. 10 verses in the Quran. Like, for example, Quran 9, 20, 21, 22. Allah said, that's the same verses repeated 10 times. Those who believe, migrate for the sake of Allah, perform jihad with their lives and with their money. What do you expect? They're going to do the first two, a third of the verse and leave the third, which that's why they are actually in Europe. And I believe in America it's going to take a little bit longer because we here in America have lots of people loaded with guns. In Europe, we don't have, literally, half of the policemen have a whistle and a stick, a piece of wood. Imagine that with me, how easy it is. If a civil war broke in Europe, Muslim will crush the British. They will crush the police in England. But in America, you have to give this country to the liberal for some terms to take the guns away from the American people so Muslims can win in America. But right now, it will be foolish if the 10 million or whatever Muslims we have in America to start a civil war, they will be crushed in no time just by some of the redneck people.
By the redneck people. What do you make of President Trump bringing the Crown Prince to the White House, the big parade, the Saudi flag waving, our military carrying this flag, and we know what it says, there is no God but Allah. And it made me very sad to see our military officers on horseback carrying this flag. I mean, that guy got a ceremony that we didn't see Benjamin Netanyahu got, and yet we do this for Saudi Arabia.
Well, Saudi Arabia are going to bring lots of money to take over America. The president is looking about this great business coming to America, and so this will help our economy, this will help our debt, and it is a chaos. It's a dilemma. If he got them here, they took over America. If he didn't get them here, Russia would take them, China would take them with all the money, which, by the way, the riches of Saudi Arabia came out of America. We bought their oil. I said that literally 30 years ago. We're going to keep buying their oil until they run out of oil, and then they have all the money to control America and many other countries around the world. So it's a chaos. It's you're doomed if you did it. You're doomed if you didn't do it. I don't know. What should Trump do? I have no idea.
Well, he shouldn't have given that big ceremony to the prince, first of all.
But they welcomed him also in Saudi Arabia with a great celebration. So it's like scratch my back and scratch your back. And so the same thing with Qatar. I mean, they're going to give him this airplane, $450 million. You have to give us a base. They're doing business in a very smart way, and we are very naive in America thinking, oh, maybe these people are different than their ancestors. Maybe there will be some moderate Muslim in the last hour here. No, Muslims are Muslims. We have to learn from yesterday. What Dr. Bill shared earlier, it is the history of Islam. It is the blueprint. It will never change. They're going to use it again and again. It's working wonderfully all over the 56 Muslim country in the past. It's working good right now in Europe. Why not do it again in America? They know what they're doing, and we're just a bunch of naive here.
And when you call the police, Shahram, and the police officer shows up and he's an Islamist, right? Good luck. Good luck, right? And that's where we're going. Or the police chief is the Islamist. And, of course, now we have Mamdani. His first endorsement is someone that called Al-Qaeda, an Al-Qaeda terrorist, a hero. I think the NYPD commissioner, he resigned, and now they're going to get themselves a new one. This should be very interesting because we already seen the cars in New York that were painted to look like NYPD cars that were Sharia patrols, right, Shahram?
Yes, Muslim community patrols, they called them. That was back in 2018, where as the NYPD was struggling with controlling those boroughs that are, now enclaves, the Muslims come up with a solution. Hey, let us patrol our own areas, give us patrol cars, give us uniforms. And of course, we were told, "Oh, don't worry, they're not police. They don't have arrest powers yet." But like you said, Mamdani is going to gut the NYPD. Already, they have between uniformed officers and support staff, they have 1,500 out of 35,000. 1,500 are Muslims, and they are going to recruit. They are talking about their diversity. He's going to gut their strategic national security group. The NYPD had a very well developed counterterrorism unit. Remember the video that Linda Sarsour put out that she was bragging that, oh, don't worry, we're going to control Zoran. We're going to make sure that he gets rid of this. So New York is going to become a breeding ground for jihadists, for, as Bill was talking about, the fundamentalists. Let's not forget Dearborn. The Muslim police chief has bragged now that almost half the department are Muslim police officers. This has been, I told you this, Brandon, about 3 months ago. I said, I think this is the biggest existential threat right now to America. Long term, of course, it's what Sharia does to our laws, our courts, our system, our politics, and persecution against Jews and Christians. But short term, they're building an army within our police departments. And this is a major national security issue right now that I don't really hear anybody addressing, but you just brought it up. And so I'm glad you're addressing it so people can understand what they're doing.
When we come back, I want to also talk about what is being reported to be Hezbollah folks. Venezuela and Hezbollah folks working together. I guess you got some LLCs, and they're buying property all throughout Central California, all the way down south through the rest of the state of California, all the way over to the very far side of Texas, and then a lot in Florida. LLCs that some are saying are now run by Hezbollah, where they have their terror cells living. We'll be right back.
Introducing the Sentry Wellness System, the ultimate under-sink water treatment solution designed with you in mind. Say goodbye to harmful toxins and hello to water enriched with essential nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Enjoy the benefits of increased pH for on-demand alkalinity, all from a zero-waste system that fits seamlessly into your home. Installation is a breeze. taking just 15 minutes so you can have clean, healthy, great-tasting water straight from your tap. Perfect for apartments, homes, rentals, and even RVs. Elevate your hydration and well-being with the Century Wellness System because you deserve the best in every drop.
Century H2O. Tap into wellness.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
All right, welcome back. Hope you'll stay tuned on this terrestrial station and listen to Crosstalk with Jim Schneider at the top of the hour, vcy.org, vcy.org, on over 100 outlets nationwide. America's original Christian talk program since the 1970s. All right, so here is a gentleman by the name of Jason Lewis. I don't know who Jason is, but he has been putting out some very interesting reports. He's providing screenshots. He says at a House hearing on March 20th, 2013, lawmakers were briefed that the island of de Margarita Island, was being used by Hezbollah to train Venezuelan cartel members. This partnership isn't new. It's more than a decade old. And then he goes on to say that Venezuela and Iran already own U.S. properties, many through shell companies with direct ties to their governments. And there are dense pockets of these holdings along the southern border. These did not appear overnight. You see them running through central California, all the way down, as I said, through the rest of the state, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and a big chunk of Texas, and then a lot in Florida. Shahram, what do you make of this report? Do you believe it, number one? And number two, do you believe all of this is more signs we have an October 7th event coming to America?
I absolutely believe it, because you and I have covered years ago, my goodness, at least 10 years, that we covered the connection between Venezuela, the connection between the pipeline that particularly Iran and Hezbollah was using to bring their foreign operatives across our southern border. We had talked at that time to Representative Sue Myrick, who was in Congress, who had outlined the different Hezbollah cells that were in America. So I absolutely believe that connection. There's no doubt that there's that connection between Iran, Venezuela, and then the cartel. And then also, yes, absolutely, I believe that they are going to plan further attacks. Again, going back to the doomsday clock, right? That remains part of the threat. And as Usama said earlier, when you have the Western nations that have been disarmed, including Canada, other than the United States, the fear is always there. The jihad attacks, the terror attacks, must always be there as the fear to those governments, so that they don't stand up and push back against Islam. That's part of the agenda. And Bill said earlier really well, it's not new. This is a 1,400-year history ever since Muhammad migrated to Medina. And could I comment on one quick thing before you go back to Usama on the Saudi Arabian flag?
Yeah.
Usama made a good point. The Saudis, they had a big ceremony when Trump was there, and they rolled out the red carpet for him. And okay, I get it. You're going to go kind of, scratch my back, you scratch your back. The difference was when we are having our military carrying forth their flags. You want to give the guy a royal treatment. That's one thing, which is, I think, foolish. But you want to have our military carry a flag that has the Shahada. That is the supremacy that you're declaring on that flag, that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. That means Islam is the final religion. So you're lifting that flag up in a supposed Christian nation in the White House, where you're supposed to have the faith office. And what message does that send, especially with that flag has a sword on it? And Saudi Arabia is is number 12 of nations that is persecuting and killing Christians.
Exactly. Now hold right there. Hold right there due to time. And really what you're saying here is there is no God but Satan, because we know the descriptions, as you guys have taught us, of Satan in the Bible are equal to the descriptions of Allah in the Quran. Now, with that and the swords, I don't know if you gentlemen, we've been covering it now on a few shows, have seen the cover of The Economist magazine. The World Ahead is for 2026. The World Ahead 2026. There's so much. We got the Club K cargo cars shooting off missiles, taking a signal from a satellite. This is what's in my documentary in 2018. But at the very center, gentlemen, of this globe are two crossed swords. Two crossed swords in the very center of this world, of this globe. And immediately I said to the audience, this looks like the swords of Islam that are crossed. What do those crossed swords mean? I need the 30-second answer, Usama. What's those?
It's very simple. If you go to Quran chapter 8, I believe verse 65, وَأَعِدُّوا and prepare for them. That is actually the logo of the Muslim Brotherhood. And prepare for them whatever power you can. And he's talking about terrorizing the infidels and wiping out from the face of the earth. That is the logo for the Muslim Brotherhood.
So why do you think this is on the cover of The Economist magazine? War is everywhere. Tanks, missiles, Club K cargo, and now crossed sword. What are the power elite trying to tell us? I don't know. But Usama, are you concerned about an October 7th style event? And I also want to ask you very quickly, how are your invitations to churches? Because where is the church? Where are our churches on this, gentlemen? Are your increased invitations coming from churches, Usama?
Believe it or not, I'm just leaving Minnesota, going back to Missouri. We call 150 conservative church to get one. It used to be 100, you get one or two, now 150. I think soon the church will close the door completely to teach its people about the threat of Islam. We have a golden opportunity, Brandon. If the church will know the truth about Islam and be equipped to share the gospel with the lost Muslims, we can have another 100 million Muslims in America. We can convert all of them with the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ and make Christian out of them. And the Muslim will stop sending their people to America. But no, the church is in a coma. The church are not interested. And we're losing our people in our churches who are married to Muslim people or converting to Islam in one way or another.
Hadian, are your invitations to churches going up or not?
Very negligible. This year, there was just a few more invitations, but like Usama said, it's so hit and miss. It's so small. It's barely negligible, and I agree with him. I just did a show last week where I said that the church in America needs CPR, a defibrillator, because that's how I think how asleep or in coma they are. They need. I joked that we should buy some toy defibrillators and send them to every church in America as a lesson of you better wake up soon.
Well, when you have the Republican Party and church denominations infiltrated, they don't want to say anything, particularly if they have city council members and the mayor and the county commissioners in their church. They don't want to say anything negative about Islam, right? They don't want to be Islamophobic. So again, political correctness can impact the church, but the real church stands up and speaks out. That's what we're doing. Thank you, gentlemen. Stay tuned for Crosstalk. Take care.
This has been...
And we're back on those, the station WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, and with you here on Worldview Tube. Interesting that we have today also going on news coming that we'll deal with Alex Newman tomorrow. We set up a taping for him or get him on. He's in Brazil, whatever we got to do to work around. I think we're going to tape tomorrow morning to work around his schedule. But I just found out today that there are these negotiations going on. The third session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee to develop a UN framework convention on international tax cooperation. Can you imagine another tax? A protocol on taxation of income derived from the provision of cross-border services. And pretty soon, it's not cross-border. Can you imagine a UN tax, folks? This is an organization that is demonic, satanic, corrupt. They have a New Age demonic prayer room at the United Nations, fashioned after that of Alice Bailey, the mother of the New Age, an occultist who wrote over 10,000 pages with her demon, the Tibetan. if we're not in the end times, folks, then what are we in here? And how's that going for Gary DeMar and Gary North and all the Reconstructionists? How's that going for you boys, huh? I don't even know if Gary North is still around, but I think Gary DeMar is. How's Kirk Cameron? How's that Reconstructionism working for you boys? Clueless, in my opinion, these guys are. Not only are they clueless, in my theological opinion, what they're doing is very, not only dangerous, but I think it is calling into question the character and nature of God. That somehow God is done with the Jewish people. I spent, as I said today, about 3 hours this morning studying Romans chapter 11, where the Apostle Paul says, by the way, I'm of the tribe of Benjamin. I'm Jewish. I'm an Israelite. Is God done with the Jews? By no means. Did he, when they rejected Messiah, did he pass over them the plan of God and go to the Gentile? Yes, he did. And the church was birthed. And he's using the Gentile to make the Jew jealous. Are they blinded? Yeah, there's a percentage of blindness that is there because of what they have done in their rejection. But it's not a total blindness, because if it were, you wouldn't have Romans 11 being written by the Israelite Paul, who was a Jew, who came to Yeshua, to Messiah. And there are many Jews today that we know. Olivier Melnick, Messianic Jew. Marty Goetz, Messianic Jew. Arnold Fruchtenbaum, Messianic Jew, right? But we are going to see a spiritual awakening when the fullness of the Gentiles has occurred, and only God knows when that is, and the church is removed. Then the attention will turn to that of Israel, redeemed Israel. And the tribulation is a part of that 7 years. And we know, as we've talked about so many times, the two plans, God's two programs, the church and the Jewish people, those who become redeemed. We know from Ezekiel 37, they have to become a political nation again because they're going to make a covenant or a pact or a treaty with Antichrist, Daniel chapter 9. So they became a nation in 48. But then they're going to be filled with the Spirit. There's going to be a redeemed Israel. So I'm going to be patient and let God work with the Jews as he has worked with us, the Gentiles, for his ultimate purpose, which includes fulfilling all kinds of Old Testament Bible prophecies, including some New Testament. But if we're in the age of Reconstructionism and dominionism, as these guys are twisting scripture to come up with this idea that's not in the Bible, how much of this are they going to follow? If the church is now Israel, folks, where's the temple? Why are we not sacrificing? Why do we not all go to church on Saturday? Well, some of the audience say, well, we should be. No, do not be compelled. Do not be compelled, it says in the New Testament, by the day. You want to meet as a New Testament fellowship on Saturday, do it. Sunday, do it. But when did this change? No, the Catholic Church didn't do it, folks. Don't send me those kind of silly emails. Go to the scripture. After the resurrection, they started meeting on Sundays to acknowledge the resurrection of the Savior. But if you want to go to church on Saturday, don't be compelled. Go. But if we're all supposed to be now following the Mosaic law, where's the sacrifice? Why are the men not making regular pilgrimage to Jerusalem? You see, you can't pick and choose what you follow. The scripture, when it says Israel, it means Israel. When it says church, it means church. We're going to get into this Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central, from the Bible, folks, with true hermeneutics, not people spiritualizing and allegorizing it away. 9 p.m. Eastern Standard, worldviewtube.com. May God save America. Take care.